Hello, everyone. A very good afternoon and welcome to day four of PHARMASTEER 2024. Let me thank all the audience and the students for demonstrating your immense love and support for PHARMASTEER 2024, without which this would not have been a resounding success. Thank you so much. Let us have a huge round of applause for all the students viewing and listening to us consistently from day one. With that, I, Ashish Kumar Dubey, Manager Medical Excellence AstraZeneca, would like to welcome you all to day four of PharmaSteer 2024 once again. I'm sure today is the day which you all must be excited for, since today we do have included the topics that would interest you the most. And without any further delay, let us dive into our first session of the day, which is the art of storytelling, communicating science with impact. And for that, we have with us Dr. Subhankar Basak, Lead Diagnostics and Health Innovation Hub, AstraZeneca India. Dr. Shubhankar is a distinguished leader and subject matter expert and accomplished business professional, boasting over 15 years of comprehensive experience across a spectrum of cross-functional areas. His career spans medical affairs, sales and marketing, business development, customer education, and life sciences research, reflecting his versatile expertise and adaptability. Throughout his career, Dr. Basak has demonstrated exceptional leadership in navigating and thriving within diverse and multicultural environments. His experience encompasses working with both Indian and multinationals across various business segments such as diagnostics, pharmaceutical, life sciences, and biotechnologies. With that, please join me in welcoming Dr. Subhankar on stage. Sir, over to you.
Thanks, Ashish. Thanks for the introduction and good afternoon to all of you. Let me share my screen first. So today we are not going to discuss science. Rather, we'll be discussing how we should communicate science so that it can create impact among our audience, right? So with that, let me take you through what we'll be discussing in next 15, 20 odd minutes. We'll be discussing about the components of stories, principle of storytelling, story framework, and how to present the data, because all the time as we are working in the arena of science, we a lot of data digging and data mining we do. We present those data and how we can build our story bank. That's very important. So let's try to understand why stories are important, right? In the medical affairs function, or in fact, any customer facing role, what we do, we interact with our stakeholders, and that interaction time span is very limited, right? And within that short time span, we need to convey the science or any information regarding products so that they can understand, they can absorb what we are telling, and they can recall what we have told them at the right time so that it can help their decision-making process. So what should we tell? Should we talk about data, or we should tell stories? There are some research done by Stanford Graduate School of Business, which says stories are up to 22 times more memorable than the facts or figures alone. I am sure you have gone through many stories in your childhood, right? We gone through Chacha Chaudhary, Indrajal comics, Chanda Mama, and many things we still remember, right? If I ask some of you, can you tell me what is the Pythagoras theorem, or in fact the Archimedes principle, which we have tried to remember? We have written our question papers as well. Sometimes we also use cheats, right? But many of us, I am sure, not able to describe the exactly the Pythagoras theorem or Archimedes principle. But on the contrary, if I ask you, can you tell me the stories of Thirsty Crow? Or in fact, the rabbit or tortoise, rabbit and tortoise, I'm sure you can recall that story in toto. Not only that, you can also tell what is the morale of the story, right? So what I'm trying to tell here, with the Stanford Business School also mentioned, it can help us, stories help us to memorize the thing better. And it has a great power to recall. And that's what we are trying to do when we talk to our customers, our external stakeholders, or we present our scientific paper in congresses, so that whenever the audience go back, they can able to recall those data or facts that we have talked about in our communications. Right? So what are the purpose of stories? Obviously, it's entertain us, it's connect us emotionally. So it's create a special bonding, right? It also helps in cognitive engagement. That means I'm sure many of you have seen these movies, right? It started from 1967, till 2024, many years. It's the same story, right? The twin separated by birth, and then one is a good cop, another bad cop kind of story, and they meet each other and they take the revenge, right? However, with the same storyline, there are some hit films like Ram or Sham to Judua, which is in the top panel, and there are, with the same stories, there are some of the flops as well. So why it happens? The same story, some are hits, some are flops. There are multiple other movies as well. I'm sure you remember the stories of Ek Duje Ke Liye, Kayamat Se Kayamat Tak, or the latest one, the Ishak Jade. The boy fall in the love of the girl. Families were against that. They end their life together. It's a classic, tragic romance movie, right? There are many movies which are not that hit. So why so? And what are the recipes of a great story? First thing, the content should be truthful. Tweak the narrative and magic happens. Let's look into this short video of 1 minute or few seconds, and then we'll come back again.
What did you do to my sign?
I wrote the same, but in different words.
Thanks, love.
Okay, so I'm not going into the morality of begging. Let's look into an objective sense. So the person written, "I am blind, please help me." The lady has changed the narration to something else. So the first principle that we derive from this, stories speaks to people's emotion. Earlier, the person written, I am blind. I'm in a sorry state. Please help me. Asking for sympathy. But the lady changed it into empathy. It's a beautiful day. I can't see it. And then the magic happens. So emotion is a very, very important aspect in the decision-making process. The decision scientists across the world, in many publications, many research work, they have mentioned human brain take decisions based on emotions. If you also look back and think through, the big decision that you have taken is predominantly based on the emotion. So when we'll be telling our story, talking about our scientific work, it should speak to people's emotion. What is the second thing? Creation of a common ground. Earlier, the person started with I, my product, my science, I am, myself. No, we need to tell, we need to create a common ground. And that's why the lady changed it into it's a beautiful day. And when you can create that common ground, your audience will start nodding. It's a beautiful day. Everybody can see that, right? And then use the power of contrast. I can't see, but you can see that beautiful world. He's rich and the other person is poor. Day and night, as I have told you earlier, this product can give better benefit, better PFS, better OS, but the earlier one can't. So that contrast we need to set. And then important aspect is highlight what is possible in future with my science, with my product, not what is possible today. That's what we need to create the contrast. And we need to use the call to action is very judiciously. Here, nobody asked, put some dollar or pennies into my bucket. Everybody looked into the story, touched their heart, and call to action happens automatically. So that's the storytelling principles I just want to share with you. And there is a framework also. There should be a character, there should be conflict. And before going to resolution, you need to infuse the big idea. If you look back into the hare and tortoise story, there are two characters that we know. There is conflict. One can run very fast. Tortoise can just only walk in sloth space. And the big idea is, tortoise continuously walked, and that's what we see the resolution. So very important aspects in each of these stories, there should be a context or character. There should be conflict. Before going to resolution, you need to infuse the big idea. So in the last part, let's discuss, should we tell the story or the data or both? So I'll give you one example. This one, a study done by Save the Children in Africa for the malnourished children to raise fund. In your left-hand side of your screen, you can see the first brochure, which is developed based on completely data. However, in next, they have created a story with a child called Rokia, who used to live in Mali. And you see what is the average donation. With the data alone, the average donation was $1 some odd pennies, but it has increased to almost double when they infuse the story of this little girl, Rokia. So it's appeal to heart. It should not go to the head. So when it appeal to heart, it speak to the emotions, and you can get better benefit out of that. So how we should present the data to the audience? You all are working in the field of science, so you understand there are two types of data. One is exploratory and another is explanatory. right? So when we should use this kind of data, when we are speaking to a technically familiar group, or when we are speaking to some big shots, the principal of the college or CEO of a company, what we should talk about. So when the people are technically familiar, we should use the exploratory method. But when we are speaking to the CEOs, principals of a college, then our pitch should be explanatory. And what we should speak, again, our story should build on all those three parameters: character, context, conflict, and resolution, infused with big idea in between. And we should always try to create a 3-minute speech, because you do not know how much time you will get. And then you should also look at how you should present the data, which kind of graph you should use. So that's also very, very critical. And the three top science communication challenge come to our mind. How can I get people to see science and care about the impact it has in their daily lives? One thing is very important here, to remember to put a human face. Like Save the Child Foundation put Rokia as their face. In many data that we present, take the example of lung cancer data. If you tell, Mohan is the lung cancer patients, and these are the impact now we can see. And with the new medicine, these were the impact, and then infuse with all the forest plot, Kaplan-Meier curves, that will create more impact in the mind of your audience. And how can I simplify complex subject without losing the original meaning? Do not afraid to reduce the detail. Put simple graphs, simple charts, so that people can correlate with that. And how do I sustain my audience interest? Very, very important that I have mentioned a couple of slides back. Your story should have truthful content, and that should be well told as well. And lastly, how you can create your story bank? You can take the story from your day-to-day practice. Day-to-day, we are meeting many people. You can create your story bank from that. When speaking to the college principal, subject matter expert, other colleagues in the organization, you can get many stories. And there are multiple books are also available. You can go through this book, great book written by Mr. Sandeep Das or Indranil Chakravarti. And there are some world-renowned books on storytelling as well, which you can see in the right side of your screen. So go through these books and try to understand how you can tell the story, keeping this principle and framework in mind. And then it will be easier for you to communicate with your stakeholders. So there are two ways to share your knowledge or your science. You can push the information out, or you can pull them with your story. With this, I'll stop here. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer. Ashish, over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Subhankar, first of all, for being here with us today and for an amazing and insightful talk on this particular important and critical aspect which is coming across. Thank you so much for that. We do have received the questions from the students while the talk was getting delivered. And my first question to you, Dr. Basak, would be, what are some common challenges that we face in scientific storytelling, and how we can address that?
Yeah, as I told during my talk, Ashish, and to all of you, when we work in the field of science, we get inundated with data. And we are in a hurry to present those data. I'm sure even I don't remember the 3 bullet points I have presented 3 months back. But if we package it in a story, that helps to communicate better, and people can recall those data, right? So it's always helpful to package it in a story so that people can remember, not only just give the data points. So that was my, highlight to all the students present here.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Subhankar, for that. My next question to you would be, I know you have reiterated this during your talk. However, I'll request you to share a few words onto this once again. What techniques can be used to make scientific stories more relatable and memorable for diverse audiences?
Yeah. So, I think I have highlighted a couple of things, but again, let me tell you this. I'll give some example from our work area itself. I think Ashish, you have a couple of minutes time,
Yeah,
right?
sure, sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm sure all the medical students here understand, lung cancer is a serious problem, right? In India, as well as throughout the world. In India, about 80,000 new patients detected every year, and almost same number of patients died as well. We have beautiful medicine nowadays, which can prolong their overall survival. But majority of the patients detected in late stage, right? And that's what the medicine's efficacy is also not optimal. So screening is very important, right? But the screening guideline protocol that we have across the world, it talks about LDCT, mobilizing the patients for screening is difficult. So what we have done last week, I think you have also gone through the AI. I'm just trying to highlight here how artificial intelligence can help to screen the lung cancer patients early. And I'm sure you will never forget this. So we have identified one solution which based on chest X-ray, because chest X-ray is ubiquitously present across the healthcare ecosystem, and it detects the incidental pulmonary nodules, and incidental pulmonary nodules in 65% cases are the precursors of lung cancer, right? And the solution also assign those nodules at high risk, low risk. So we have done a project in eastern part of the country in one of the hospitals where they have screened, questionnaire-based screen about 4,000 individuals. Out of that 4,000 individuals, we have identified about 200 individuals with high risk nodule, right? Sorry, 200 were high risk, and all those 200 high risk patients gone through the chest X-ray breast AI based interpretation, and about 15 or 20 patients detected with high risk nodule, and all of them went through CT based as well as biopsy based confirmation, and out of that 2 patients detected with early stage of lung cancer. That's the power of AI. And I am sure the story that I have told you today, with some of the data and facts, you will remember for a long time how artificial intelligence can help to screen out more number of lung cancer patients so that they can get the maximum benefit of the beautiful medicine nowadays available in the market.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Subhankar, for that. And I do have last couple of questions with you. And I know you talked about emotions during your talk in terms of how the entire emotional framework functions once we get into storytelling, right? So students want to understand that what role do emotions play in storytelling process, and how can they enhance the communication of scientific ideas that are coming across? So maybe you could throw some light onto that,
Yeah.
Dr. Basak.
So absolutely, that's very nice question. Now I have narrated a story. I think it will resonate to all of you. Now, if I put a human face into that, as I was talking about earlier, I think that would play a more emotional impact on anybody's mind. And that's why if you see the earlier story that we have learned through our grandmas, grandpas, it starts with once upon a time, there was a king. Right? So when you put a human face into that, what I would also suggest, a couple of months back, there was a nice story of a patient called Kim Moscow presented in Fox News channel. You can put Kim Moscow and Fox News channel, and he talked about one of the targeted therapy of lung cancer, how that patients got benefit of the newer medicine and prolonged his lifespan. When you talk about Kim Moscow, tell the patient has 2 daughters, younger daughters, and she has only 5 months life to spend in this world. That increases your curiosity. So it's always better to, include a human face into your story and then infuse gradually the data points that will appeal to your audience emotion, and that will have a hook, or it will have a prolonged lifespan in your audience mind.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Subhankar, first of all, for being here with us and addressing all the queries that came across. Thank you so much to the audience for putting forth such amazing questions. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, everyone. And wish you a great success for this event.
Thank you so much, Dr. Subhankar. All right. With that, let us now move forward to our next topic of the day, and which is next generation medical affairs. And we all know that pharmaceutical industry and medical affairs as a function is something which is continuously evolving, and which is why it is important for all of us to evolve ourselves and uplift ourselves in terms of the capabilities if we want to remain at the forefront of the impact which we want to create through what we do, right? And to take us through that, we have with us Mr. Robin England, International Medical Excellence Associate Director, AstraZeneca. Mr. Robin is a distinguished leader in pharmaceutical industry, bringing years of unparalleled value through his diverse expertise, both in commercial and medical excellence. His career is marked by strong focus on data analytics, market research, sales force effectiveness, strategies, and business intelligence tools, including digital platforms. With over past 5 years, Mr. Robin has excelled in executing excellence and capabilities development within medical affairs teams with a strong emphasis on people development. His unique ability to harness big data ensures that businesses ask right questions, capture essential information, and leverage strategic insights to guide both commercial and medical teams towards impactful outcomes. With over 20 years of industry experience, Mr. Robin has developed a profound understanding of market dynamics, customer needs, and patient requirements. This deep acumen enables him to provide strategic guidance that enhances decision-making processes for medical affairs function. With that, please join me in welcoming Mr. Robin on stage. Robin, over to you.
Thank you, Ashish. I'm blushing now. Thank you. I think you took that from LinkedIn. Hello, everybody. I'm Robin. I'm based in Australia. And yes, I've had about 30 years experience in the pharmaceutical industry, both from the UK, Europe, Australia, and now at international level. In international, we cover areas such as Latin America, Middle East, Africa, Russia, India, Asia, Australia, New Zealand. So I work with a lot of different time zones, a lot of different people, and live a lot of different cultures. Ashish, would you like me to share my slides?
That would be okay, Robin.
Okay,
if you could.
I can, yes. Okay. All right. I've got a short presentation for you to talk about different capabilities. Now, these are capabilities that are required for medical affairs, but you also might find them very useful in your role as doctors or becoming doctors. So let me just find my slides. Here they are. And okay, let me put it on screen. I'm sure that Ashish will provide. Here I am. A little bit more formal on a proper stage rather than a virtual stage here. So I'm coming to you from AstraZeneca, where I've been working for the last 8 years, but I've also worked for other pharmaceutical companies and worked in the consultancy era. Okay, I'm going to take you through some slides, talked about presentation, and we should have some time at the end for a Q&A if there's any questions. So as you're well aware, we work and live in a very disruptive world, a world they call a VUCA world now, which is very disruptive. Since COVID, it's been even more disruptive, both from a climate point of view, a political environment, as well as economic environment, as you know, you're well aware. Healthcare is also changing, and the way that we treat healthcare is changing. we've got a lot of treatments now for chronic medications, but we're starting to work on a lot of very targeted patient needs and very complex treatments for patients and healthcare professionals to treat and for carers to understand. So, there's a lot going on here in terms of our aging population, in terms of how we treat patients. So a very changing world, which is why change is inevitable and we need to change. And growth is also intentional. So this is a chameleon dragon, and as you know, they change their colors to camouflage themselves depending on the environment they're in. So they have that adaptive nature to be able to change. Now, we also need to change. We cannot carry on doing the things we did 20 years ago because everything has changed around us. We have AI, digital, etc. So I'm going to talk to you about why that's important and what the change means to medical affairs. So we always talk about this being, you need to have a growth mindset to succeed. Any industry you're in, you need this. Your fixed mindset is fixing it on a point in time that you joined the industry that you're in, and your desire to change is very limited. Whereas a growth mindset is more agile and it has a desire to improve. I personally am always looking to improve the way we did things. Even if I did something 6 months ago, how can we do it better this time round? So the whole premise revolves around having this growth agile mindset. And the agility is critical. We have to be more agile in life. And medical affairs has to be agile in the way they think, the way they learn, and their emotional agility, how they are able to deal with people in different manners. So these are critical skills for people in medical affairs, and I'm sure for you as well. I'm just highlighting them from the point of medical affairs. So McKinsey, who are a major consulting organization, brought out a paper and they talked about the vision for medical affairs and what will happen in 2030. And previously, medical affairs had been a bit of a support function. It's now the third pillar in terms of a pharmaceutical company: research and development, medical affairs, and commercial and market access. And I almost liken medical affairs teams to a relay race. People in a relay race, they hold the baton when they're running. It usually starts in research and development. They hand it over to clinical trials, and medical affairs picks that up and runs the race before it gets handed to a commercial team. And medical affairs is now center within an organization. So it's a critical part. I've been in medical affairs now for 8 years. I've been in the pharmaceutical industry for 30 years. When I joined AstraZeneca in Australia 8 years ago, there were 30 people in medical affairs. Now there's over 100 people. Now there's over 100 people in medical affairs. The growth in medical affairs roles has grown exponentially. Yeah. So very important part of the business, our medical affairs. And we look for highly trained, highly skilled scientific people, but also have those soft skills as well that I'm going to talk about. So McKinsey also talked about having 5 key priorities for medical affairs. So boosting medical affairs leadership capabilities to deal with patient impacts, looking at end-to-end data analytics for medical affairs, differentiating the medical strategies, looking for evidence to support molecules, treatments with stakeholder needs, and then orchestrating medical engagement. And that looks at, what we're doing today, having a virtual discussion, having a face-to-face discussion, looking at all the different channels that healthcare professionals, patients can access information to help them understand better the disease that they may have, the treatment that may be available. So the evolution, and I've mentioned this, is moving from R&D to patient care. We've moved from a supportive function to now a strategic partner within the business. And that's a big change for people in medical affairs. They're now at the forefront of the organization in terms of strategy and in terms of bringing products to market or not if they don't make the clinical evidence. So a very important pillar for medical affairs, and we're moving to that phase, and that will continue for, and I can foresee this. My own opinion is that as medicines and treatments become more complex, you need scientific leaders to talk to other scientific leaders, healthcare professionals, about that. You've got to have that pure science knowledge and understand the data and be able to communicate that. So medical affairs is perfectly positioned for that. So I wanted to highlight now 6 key qualities that a medical director. So a medical director is the person in the medical affairs team that looks after the team. They're the leader of medical affairs. They generally sit on a country leadership team in a pharmaceutical company, and they report above market and generally work with regional and international and global people. So these medical directors are the center of the wheel. They are the orchestra. They're the conductor. They have to work across clinical development, market access, regulatory affairs. They also have to have a very strong compliance arm and a GDP arm, and understand patient advocacy and work cross-functionally. So huge role for a medical director. So they need to have key skills. These are 6 that we've identified. 1 is quite simply, they need to understand the disease. They have to be experts in the science and the epidemiology, etc. And not just for one product or one therapy area. In a company like AstraZeneca, we work across multiple disease cases, from respiratory disease to cardiovascular, to kidney failure, to oncology, to hematology, to rare disease, to vaccines. These guys have to have a high level of knowledge across that board, because they need to be able to understand it to communicate with their teams and to external stakeholders like yourselves, doctors. They also cannot just be scientists. Medical affairs cannot be scientists at any level anymore. They have to have strong business acumen, right? So they need to understand the environment, the healthcare system. They need to understand the dynamics around the country that they're working in. They need to understand the flow of data in their country, evidence in their country, right? So a huge role. And they need to be able to communicate that at that senior leadership team level with marketing, with IT, with the country leader themselves. So not only need to know the science, they also need to know the business. They also have to have excellent relationship skills, right? So they need to be able to build both internal relationships and external. So they need to build trust and confidence. They need to have a high level of emotional intelligence. They might be dealing with internal people situations 1 minute and then talking to a national key opinion leader on the next minute. So they need to be able to talk the talk with multiple different stakeholders. And they also need to have a broad understanding of everything medical affairs does, from compliance, health economics, drug safety, patient safety, medical information, and the role of field medical teams. Tough job. And that's why our medical directors generally go through the ranks. They will have come from MSL, medical science liaison. They might be a medical manager. They work themselves up, and it takes them a long time. Like building a house, you have to build your foundational skills, and medical directors have to build that. It's very rare that someone will come into an organization without having a broad understanding of the different roles in medical affairs first. So they also have to exhibit confidence with external stakeholders. They have to build credibility with key doctors. Like it says here, you only get one chance to make a first impression. We all know that. Whether it's a doctor meeting another doctor, a doctor meeting a patient, you're always on show. And that's no different from a medical director has to build strong rapport and demonstrate long-term value for external customers. So the final thing is the 6. They have to be great communicators, whether that's written or verbal. They have to be great communicators. They have to be able to stand on stage. They have to be able to stand behind a video, and they have to be able to talk to their teams one-on-one or in team situations. So that last speaker talked about storytelling. We train our medical directors, as we do our country leadership team, on great storytelling, narratives, how to build impact with their stories, no matter what they're doing. So there's 6 key things for a medical director. If ever you're thinking about being a medical director, write these down, because this is the key skills that you'll need. So now I'm going to talk about what other skills we might need. And the balancing scales here is because it's a balance between having your scientific skills, your understanding of a disease, a therapy area, products, the healthcare system, and leadership skills, or what's known as soft skills. So I'm not going to talk about the scientific skills, because that goes down into products and therapy areas and molecules, etc. But I will talk about now some of the critical skills that you need in medical affairs to succeed. And these are probably skills that you'll need in most businesses. So in medical affairs, the evolution takes us from understanding real-world evidence, medical engagement, insights, working on medical projects, generating evidence, transforming engagement, working with access, and around differentiating our strategies and evidence and being the orchestrator. So this is what McKinsey have said, right? But if you can Google this, there are lots. I didn't pick up the 65 skills that McKinsey say, but 10 skills you need to thrive in the future. Problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management or people skills, collaborating with others, emotional intelligence, decision-making, service orientation, negotiation, and having cognitive flexibility. Now, you could probably Google and find a few more, but these, I think, are pretty key for anyone that's working, whether you're working in a hospital, whether you work in a pharmaceutical industry, whether you're working in the car industry. These are great skills to have. Now, we might not be great at all of them, but we need to understand them and work on them, because people that have these skills are going to succeed. They're going to do very well. One of those skills is around communication and building trust and rapport. Medical affairs needs to do that both internally with their stakeholders and externally. And, you know, as I always say, trust isn't built in one meeting you have with somebody. It's built over a series of meetings and a length of time that you meet people. So trust is critical. It's about valuing long-term relations, not short-term gains. It's about being honest with people. It's about honoring your commitment, admitting when you're wrong, communicating clearly and effectively, being transparent about things, standing up for what's right, your values, and what's wrong, showing people you care, being helpful, and this is one that I really love, showing that you're vulnerable. It's a critical skill for any leader in business these days. You don't have to know all the answers. You can be vulnerable and share that, and it'll build the trust with other people. So now I'm going to quickly flick on to emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is critical for anyone in the workplace going through careers. And it takes time. When you're 20 or 19, you may not have the emotional skills that you do when you're my age now. I've made lots of mistakes along the way. And generally, it's around self-control, adaptability, my own self-awareness of situations. These are the things that you have to work on. Self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, right? And then relationships. Empathy comes across here. Now, doctors, I know you're taught a lot about empathy. It is a great skill to have. And if you can, that's not mastered when you're 18. It takes a long time to master. Organizational awareness, influencing, the difference between coaching someone and mentoring, dealing with conflict in the workplace, teamwork. So these are great skills for medical affairs people to, and we train people on this. But as I say, you can only train so much. Sometimes it's you learn along the way and you will make mistakes. The key thing is when you make a mistake, work out what you did and work out how you can mitigate that going forward. What are triggers that you can put in place to control yourself, to be adaptable? And you learn those as you go through life. So, why should we be more empathetic? Well, probably don't need to tell you this as doctors, but you need to seek the other person's point of view. You need to sit in the other person's shoes. You need to, it makes us more compassionate and it helps us as a leader to be inclusive and encourage diversity. And I think being empathetic in the workplace is a great skill to have for medical affairs. When they go out to see a doctor, an MSL goes to see a doctor, I always say to them, think about the doctor. What is their situation? What might be going through their mind? What have they dealt with today or yesterday? And be empathetic to that. And if you need to walk away from something, you need to walk away because you need to be compassionate and understand that they might be dealing with a lot more that's important than you. So always think about the other person. And my other key skill that I always look for when I recruit people, and I'll say that when I recruit people, I'm always looking, are they curious? Do they ask questions that are future thinking? Are they digging deep into a situation? Do they want to find out more? Do they want to see how they can change things, make it better? Curiosity and staying curious is a great skill for someone in medical affairs, someone that's willing to think about something and maybe ask a few questions or go away and research something and come back and say, I've thought about that situation and I reckon we can do it better if we did this. And having curiosity is the starting point for that. So I'm a big fan of curiosity, communication, emotional intelligence. These are key skills that I look for when I'm looking to recruit people. Because if they're curious, they're going to look to do things different and improve things the way we do things. And that's about change and about having that growth mindset and agility. And as we go forward, there's no getting away from using AI and digital. And we're using it in our personal lives. You're using it in your personal lives. We're all using forms of digital. So we need to look at how we engage and partner using digital. We need to look at how we shape things. How do we communicate new science in a different way, a more engaging way, a more impactful way that resonates with people? And we need to trial these different digital tools that we have. Now, it may not suit everyone. I'm a firm believer in face-to-face meetings. I think when you sit down with someone and you chat to someone, the conversation can go many different directions. Whereas, maybe with a digital format, it's focused on one thing, but it's there to complement the human being face-to-face conversation that we always have. And I just finish on this. What is it that we're looking for? What does it look like? What does success look like? I always say to someone, how will you know you've been successful? If we meet in a year's time, how will you know you've had a great year? So making a difference in patients' lives is what AstraZeneca and what we try and do by changing the landscape, growing, innovating, changing clinical practice. Sneezing, sorry. And making sure that they have the best care I'm going to sneeze again, that best possible care they can have. So I'm going to leave there. I'm going to stop sharing. As I say, I'm sure these slides will be made available. Not bad for time, Ashish. Not bad for time. 23 past.
You're right.
I hope that was interesting for people. I think what I was talking about there you could probably give the same presentation to telecommunications leadership, the key leadership skills that you have in life. So I just thought I'd share that with you today.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Robin. First of all, for being here with us. I know it's late night over there in Australia right now, but you accepted to be with her today is something which we really appreciate, and I'm sure your talk must have benefited the students out there who are listening to us right now. Thanks a lot for that, Robin. We do have received some questions from the students. I know you touched base upon digital and AI during your talk. So my first question to you would be around that. And the question is, how is digital transformation impacting the functions and responsibilities of medical affairs team?
Very good question, and we could probably speak about it for about an hour. I would say that our field medical teams are using AI tools now to look at, they're investigating who they're going to see, what information, getting to understand the doctors they're going to see. They're looking at AI to help them with their presentations and their communication skills. They're looking at, I had a great tool the other day, Notebook, I think it's called. I think that's what, let me just check. I'll just check my notes. Notebook LM, great tool, turns a clinical paper, a 10, 20-page clinical paper into a podcast, a two-way podcast that they can listen to, and it talks about the benefits. Digital AI is doing that right now. We're using AI and avatars to train people, to help them improve the way they do things. So there's many ways in which people are using AI and digital, and we could go on and on. They're using it in evidence generation, clinical trial generation, etc. Sorry, I could, that's probably a whole session, and probably a worthwhile session to put on, actually.
All right. Thanks a lot for that, Robin. My next question to you would be, what are the potential challenges and opportunities that next generation medical affairs teams might face in coming years?
I think the challenge is, one of the challenges is going to be that we are all going to get very busy. We're already busy in life, whether you're in medical affairs or a doctor. And so, you've got to prioritize what you do. You've got to make sure that your engagements, your relationships, your partnerships are valuable for both people. And that it's worthwhile that you have those relationships. I think if you're not doing that, it's going to be very challenging for medical affairs people to carry on and see people, because you've got to demonstrate that value to the other individual. It's got to be a two-way thing in a relationship. So I think that's going to be, there's also going to be a profound amount of data. And so staying on top of the data, is going to be really challenging. Whether you're a medical affairs professional or a doctor, staying on top of that, how do you do it in a way that you can remain a subject matter expert? Because I think there's going to be so much data coming through. You're going to have to sift through that to work out what is the key things that I need to know and what's nice to know. I think that's going to be very challenging as we go forward. Just two things. I'll just stop on two things.
All right, thanks a lot for that, Robin. And my last question to you would be, how can medical affairs professionals foster stronger collaborations with other departments such as R&D, sales, and marketing?
First thing is have an enterprise, what they call an enterprise view. So really understand other departments in the business, R&D, commercial, marketing, not just medical affairs. And understand the challenges and the objectives that those teams will have. Be empathetic to that and act as a partner for them. Really understand their issues, their challenges, and how can medical affairs help their challenges. So if you can build that, you will start building trust and relationships with them, and then you'll be seen as a credible partner, and then you'll be able to collaborate even better. But if you don't take notice of what their challenges are, their goals, their objectives, and say, you know, if you were in marketing, for instance, Ashish, I'd say to you, you've had a great year this year, but 2025, what's your goal? What's your ambition? What are you trying to do? And how can we work together on that? How can we work together? So I think that's critical. Rather than just focusing on your own objectives, you need to think about the broader objectives. Does that help?
All right. Yes, absolutely. I think what you said is, utilization of the collective expertise across the functions is something which is important in terms of achieving overall AstraZeneca objective. Robin, totally in line with you on what you said, and thank you so much. With that, let me thank you, Robin, for being here with us and addressing to all the questions which came across from the students, and thank you so much everyone for putting forth such excellent questions across. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you for the questions. Thank you, everybody.
All right, with that, let us now move forward to our next session, and which is antibiotic stewardship, need for academia industry partnership. And for that, we have with us Dr. Nusrat Shafiq, faculty, clinical pharmacology, Department of Pharmacology, Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research, Chandigarh. Dr. Nusrat Shafiq is a distinguished faculty member in Clinical Pharmacology Unit of Department of Pharmacology, PGI-MER, Chandigarh, where she has been serving since 2010. With nearly 2 decades of experience, Dr. Nusrat excels in training, research, and patient care. As the member secretary of Institutional Ethics Committee and adjunct faculty at the Telemedicine Center, Dr. Shafiq plays a pivotal role in various academic and clinical initiatives. Her innovative teaching methods, such as open book evaluations and online modules, have enhanced the training of students across multiple disciplines. Dr. Shafiq's team has been instrumental in conducting critical phase 1 studies and pioneering research in antimicrobial stewardship, earning recognition as an advanced center by ICMR. Dr. Nusrat has over 130 publications in high-impact journals and has authored 4 books. Her contributions to national and international conferences have been widely recognized, and she has served as a consultant for the National Action Plan on AMR and provided inputs to WHO policy. Her dedication to evidence-based practices and antimicrobial optimization has established her as a leader in field. With that, let us now invite Dr. Nusrat on stage to take this forward. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Ashish, for that eloquent introduction. And if before I start, can you please confirm if I'm adequately audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Thank you. And I must thank the team for giving me this opportunity to be speaking in this very reputed series of talks that you all organize. So without much ado, allow me to share my presentation with you. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So we have. Yeah, can you see the presentation there?
No, still not, ma'am. We cannot see, ma'am.
Okay. So can somebody confirm if it's visible or not?
Not yet, ma'am. I believe it's not visible yet.
Let me just try again.
Yes, now
Is
I think
it?
it's loading. It's loading. Yes, now it's visible.
Yeah. So here we go, and I believe a lot of postgraduate students have joined in this session, as was conveyed to me by Dr. Padmaja. So I'll try to see if I'm able to reach out to most of you. We will have a short Q&A session at the end. and I'll be happy to take your questions then. But honestly, I must confess, this presentation was kind of tricky one for me because it required me to weave in the interests of what we do as antimicrobial stewards and that of industry partners. So let me see if I'm able to do enough justice for you. I mean, all of us would very well know that antimicrobial resistance is now considered as one of the important global threats. But it was not until a commission report was sought from O'Neill and team for putting some monetary value to this problem of antimicrobial resistance. And he came up with some estimates which were kind of astonishing. He predicted that there would be around 10 millions of deaths by the year 2050, and not only that, it would strip the economies of 3.4 million, trillion dollars of GDP annually, and over 24 million people would be pushed to abject poverty. So this caused a lot of ripples globally. But honestly, I'll tell you, this was something that we used to see in our day-to-day experiences. We were seeing people selling off lands in order to meet treatment for their drug-resistant infections. We were seeing it on a daily basis. But yes, these figures created the right kind of impact. Close on his came this report in Lancet by the antimicrobial resistance collaborators. They dug into a massive amount of data which was published as systematic reviews, reports, and multiple other data, and they did some modeling, and they came up with this estimates of deaths per million population, which could either be deemed to be associated with antimicrobial resistance, or could be considered to be attributable to antimicrobial resistance. As you would appreciate that the sub-Saharan countries are surpassing most of the other regions of the world. But to Southeast Asia, and they don't talk about India separately, Southeast Asia is not way behind. Estimated deaths associated with antimicrobial resistant or infections due to antimicrobial resistance in sub-Saharan countries was nearly 27.3 per million of population. And that's really huge when it comes into absolute numbers. If you would see this pictorial representation of third generation cephalosporin resistant E. coli, you would see that we get really dark shades. And I have chosen a milder version because if we go on to the pictorial representation of carbapenem resistant organisms and their distribution patterns, we acquire a more distinct tinge. If I were to just superimpose the data of antimicrobial consumption in this region, we would be astonished by the parallelism in the two. And that was again and again found by several surveys that we have done, an important one being the first of its kind, where we did with the 4 other institutes under the aegis of Indian Council of Medical Research, which designated us as Advanced Center of Clinical Pharmacology for Antimicrobial Stewardship. We had similar kind of findings. Back then, it was ceftriaxone which topped the list. We have repeated this survey in around 11 institutes, and there the situation has in fact worsened, despite people having been initiated into antimicrobial stewardship and other activities. But despite that, this is occurring. And if you take a look at the kind of organisms that we are encountering, it is Klebsiella pneumoniae, E. coli, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Acinetobacter baumannii, and a couple of other important organisms of concern. And the pattern is nearly the same across these healthcare facilities. So they're going hand in hand. All these things are hand in hand. So that brings us to at the need of the hour, that is antimicrobial stewardship. Simply put, this is a gamut of activities or coherent set of actions directed towards responsible use of antimicrobials. I'll talk about responsible use a little later too. We are more familiar with rational use of antimicrobials, but here it is about responsible use of antimicrobials. Basically, it has multiple objectives of this kind of gamut of activities can be envisaged. And the list can be made more granular, but you would very well appreciate that most of them border around using antibiotics rationally, minimally where needed, bringing about behavior change, with all of this with an objective of improving healthcare, reducing the cost, decreasing emergence of antimicrobial resistance. And what are these activities? Nothing very, nothing which borders around rocket science, but simple implementation science like prospective audit and feedback, formulary restrictions, training and education, very simple things, awareness, timeout approaches, policies and regulations. So basically, it is very simple science, so to say, but conducting it on a day-to-day manner and making sense of it, improvising upon it is something which is more of an art than science. And in my present presentation, I will not go into the details of this, which I usually do for most of my other presentations, because I have to link it with something which is the overall scope of the current series of seminars. Importantly, if you would looking at it, you would understand this is totally counterintuitive to what might interest the pharmaceutical industry, because yes, they won't like a situation like this. At least so this is what we would think, but we'll see how it could be a very win-win situation for everyone. So basically, suffice it to say that overuse and misuse of antibiotics has a very strong impact on emergence and spread of antimicrobial resistance. And when we work in an environment of resistance organisms all around us, just out of fear, we overuse and misuse. So there comes the issue. Now, antimicrobial stewardship is also about using the right drugs. But if the resistant organisms are so prevalent, we have to use the right drugs. What do we have in our hands with carbapenem-resistant organism? We have just a couple of those things available, and very often we're using colestins and polymyxin B. If we can afford ceftazidime, maybe bactam and aspirin, maybe. So we have a very thin pipeline of new antibiotics, and that's where pharmaceutical industry has a very direct role in addressing this resistance issue. Dwindling pipelines mean that the way we have our treatment outcomes, they get worsened. There is increased cost of treatment. In fact, we just explored the cost of treating infections due to resistant bugs along with other institute, again under the aegis of ICMR, and the costs were nearly double that of treating infections due to susceptible bugs. Okay, then that means that we have to really ponder about this dwindling pipeline. I mean, industry which is always coming up with new ideas, why isn't investing too much? Because perhaps it's not a very lucrative business. That is one of the reasons. And that's where I have taken this example of this piece of article that we did for communications medicine, wherein they brought in together different peoples and including those from industry to give their opinion about antimicrobial drug pricing and how it could address the situation of antimicrobials that we need. And while we gave our perspective, which was more around DPCOs, available of generics, quality medicines, the industry talked about newer models for bringing them in, such as subscription model, and they talked about value-based economics. Like we have new models where people start talking about investing in R&D in antimicrobials. But it's not very easy now because it was very, very remarkably, somebody said that it's like an fire extinguisher, because antibiotics are involved in management of so many conditions, even addressing the impact of resistance is always an underestimate. For example, we often see these cases being discussed in our mortality meets where patient would have come with CAD but ends up with sepsis and dies because of multi-drug resistant bugs. Transplant patients, we all know what the outcomes are largely because of. It is as much of because of graft versus host disease or transplant failure, as is because of sepsis, which may occur subsequently. So this is kind of a very complicated situation. But importantly, all of us have come together to address this dwindling pipeline. And WHO kind of envisaged this quite some time ago in 2014 when they came up with this white paper on global consortium, which involved people from academia, industry, policymakers, and they thought about strategies which involved both push strategies and such as milestone prizes, grants and contracts, and pull strategies such as buying out patents or delinking marketing of antibiotics with the profits, and other models of pooled procurement and subscription models. And they said that not only this would be important, it would be also important to develop platforms which would enable these activities in drug discovery in the field of antimicrobials. These platforms could include making compound libraries, network biorepositories, and a fallout of the same was that we had models like New Drugs for Bad Bugs, an initiative of Innovative Medicines Initiative, which had four important pillars. One was about enabling such platforms that I just mentioned, which was called translocation. Another was about taking some molecules which were called lead molecules to early translation, and then later on development, combati, and then finally they also did an exemplar for defining responsible use of antimicrobials. Rational use of antimicrobial is more prescriber driven, where you see right dose, duration, and all those things. But responsible use involves multiple stakeholders which are involved in healthcare systems and policies which ensure a consistent supply chain as well. And we had examples which we recently saw for one of the important innovations which was declared recently and was developed by the support of BIRAC. BIRAC is a very good example from our own country. Then I just browsed on the site of Bugworks and I realized how many collaborators that they work with, and it is not just national, international collaborators that work with. So many of these groups came up to kind of provide a very different kind of approach for encouraging people to come up with, and especially small and medium enterprises in LMICs to come up with addressing solutions for drug-resistant pathogens. And we did have quite a few of them. Not listed here is the one which has been made by Orchid Pharma, the cefepime and beta-lactamase inhibitor combination, that is N-metazobactam. But importantly, we have to realize that all of this has to take into consideration emergent resistant organism. For example, NDM resistance is very common in our part of the world, and very few drugs currently address that problem. And very importantly, I explored the developmental pathways, and what was kind of upsetting me was, though a lot of initial work would have been done in India, we were missing from the scene for the recently announced drug in the drug development process in clinical trial stages. Then the questions that matter to us were largely not addressed by some of these issues. I mean, how does the drug compare with colistin, for example, or how much of NDMs get affected by it? Would it be prudent to have the oral formulation, which has a potential for misuse? Then dose optimizations, these have not really been carried out in our centers, which is something I think we should be seriously thinking about. And then so when we have this new drug, in order to use them responsibly, we are increasingly talking about removing in antimicrobial stewardship principles right from the beginning. So in this paper here, which we did collaboratively, we talked about some of the existing models, examples, which we have from our country. For example, when we had bird flu, our oseltamivir example is something that I quote often. We could draw a leaf from there and think about ways where we leverage on evidence-based guidance right from the beginning, specific drug labeling, and we have a system for monitoring the use as well. Then we ensure how these can be a sustainable and responsible supply to various organizations which may need these drugs. Okay, so that was about new drug. The other arm, which is less talked about and where industry has to chip in again, is that of shortages of essential antimicrobials. So from one end, we need to go to the other end where we need their involvement as much as we need for them for drug discovery. For example, we were increasingly encountering this issue of shortages and we explored it. We realized it was just not about antimicrobial R&D not being lucrative. It was also about fragmented supply chains, concentration of APIs in certain economies, poorly functioning systems for drug pricing, issues related to policy and regulatory processes, which were all leading to a situation where essential antimicrobials were going off the shelf. And this was something that we thought it required a multi-pronged approach to address this situation. We carried out a systematic review and we looked at the causes, and the causes were much what as I have just mentioned. But what we understood, though the phenomenon is global, most of the reporting is occurring in the global north, and there is absolute blackout in the global south. Perhaps we are afraid that we will be criticized much more than anyone else. That's probably true, but it is something that we need to be really thinking about. Stopgap arrangements alone will not do. We have a list of very essential antimicrobials which go off the shelf every now and then. We did an exemplary study of piperacillin tazobactam, which showed several episodes of shortages globally, more so in global north, when there was an abundance of this drug in the global south. So something is amiss. And we tried to mention some kind of solutions. We'll go into the details subsequently, maybe. And then there was this thing that I think we all need to learn from. The example of CIPLA. I mean, I'm not ashamed of talking about one particular industry here because this was something that we really should be feeling very happy about. There was a time when 40% of people infected with HIV were using the low-cost, good quality generics of generic antiretroviral cocktail, which was being made by CIPLA. So it's very important that we take pride in what we have and we leverage on finding solutions for through these existing competence that we have. We have to be working around problems of evergreening of patents and arm twisting tactics, which sometimes are employed. And then we have to also be very cognizant of competing priorities that we are dealing with. Importantly, India is one of the few countries globally where public sector units are still delivering on requirement of essential antibiotics. I've given you an example here, one example here, but I think there are a couple of others as well. So basically, we have to have an enabling environment where hand-holding is required, having stringent regulations about your industry influence is going to just kill some of the small manufacturers. There has to be a capacity building kind of approach where they are handheld and incentivized in various ways for taking care of these environmental issues while being able to deliver on the requirements. It is the sustained availability and access to essential antibiotics is dependent on many factors, not just companies going or refusing to manufacture or finding it difficult to manufacture. It also borders around enabling policies, disparities, socioeconomic disparities in and practices, prescriber behaviors, health-seeking behaviors, and of course, manufacturing and supply chains we have talked about. We recently reviewed it, and we also suggested some solutions which border around increasing awareness, strengthening healthcare systems, talking about very time-tested approaches like pooled procurement of antibiotics, global stockpiling, tiered pricing, multiple winner tendering, many other kind of things, and ensure thinking of mechanisms which can ensure sustainable production and availability of antibiotics. I'd like to end by saying that partnership between academia, policymakers, manufacturers, and suppliers is very doable and is the need of the hour for in this situation of antimicrobial resistance. Antimicrobial stewardship has to be woven into this whole system. Awareness and understanding among all and consensus models have to be brought in. If industry could be brought into together on a process of making responsible use of antimicrobials, defining responsible use of antimicrobials, I think we can go far ahead. And then we would need to invest in development of platforms to create enabling environment. With this, I would like to thank everyone for patient listening and will be happy to take some questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nusrat Ma'am, for being here with us today and for an excellent talk for the benefit of the students. So we do have received a couple of questions from the students. I know you have a hard stop at 2:30, however, 3:30 for, sorry, I would request you to respond to a couple of them. So the first question would be, how can academic research contribute to development of innovative strategies for antibiotic stewardship that industry partners can implement?
Yeah, so I gave you that pictorial representation of the write-up we have done for Lancet Infectious Diseases, wherein we said we have existing models. For example, I talked about oseltamivir example, how the supply of oseltamivir was very well regulated and the use was monitored. There were clear-cut policies which came from academia, was followed by industry for delivering on those policies. When we said this is our forecasted requirement, industry immediately delivered, and policymakers tied up, came together to even talk about compulsory licensing and other strategies to enable manufacturing for meeting the requirement. I think 6 companies were given those licenses. Then we have an example of bedaquiline. Bedaquiline is another example, which we talk about very frequently. And in India, the entire supply chain has been managed pretty well for meeting the requirements of patients with MDR-TB. So there is a lot of input which would come from academia, and there would be industry partners who would deliver on those inputs. So that's how antimicrobial stewardship works with industry partners. Second thing is, we create these repositories of resistant pathogens, those on which industry partners can test their compounds. So that's not typically stewardship, but it will help us communicate to them what we need and they can develop on those. Third is dose optimization. I would say that's something that we really need to work together with, because it comes towards the later, and this process continues when we want to work on special populations and others. That data could very well be generated in industry, in academic settings, and that could feed onto the industry manufacturer's portfolio.
All right. Thank you so much, ma'am, for that. My next question to you would be, what all are the ethical considerations when it comes to data sharing between academic researchers and industry stakeholders for antibiotic stewardship programs?
So I think we have to be very clear. The data sharing is a win-win situation for everyone. Without that, we can't proceed. The only thing is the processes have to be taken care of. We have very good institutional processes of ethics review. About signing the memorandum of understanding. And these processes, if respected well, I think there should be no issue with data sharing. Now, there are mechanisms by which you share anonymized data. If the consent has been taken, I think there wouldn't be many ethical issues there.
All right. Thank you so much, ma'am. With that, let me thank you for being here with us and for an excellent talk and addressing the questions which came from the audience. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. With that, let us now move forward to our last but not the least session of PharmaSteer 2024. And for that, we have with us none other than Dr. Viraj Rajyadhaksh, lung and GI cancers franchise head, international markets, AstraZeneca, a man who need no introduction. However, for the benefit of those who may want to know more about him, Dr. Viraj is a visionary leader in pharmaceutical industry, celebrated for his strategic insight and collaborative spirit. His leadership style uniquely combines innovation with empathy, creating a vibrant environment where cross-functional teams can excel and achieve remarkable breakthroughs. Dr. Viraj is known for his ability to inspire and empower individuals, fostering a culture of open communication and creative problem solving. He is deeply committed to patient-centric strategies, ensuring that every decisions and initiatives prioritizes the well-being of the needs of the patients. With that, let us now invite Dr. Viraj on stage. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Dr. Padmaja. Thank you, KM Hospital and the department for inviting me. As an alumni, it is always a pleasure to come back. And thank you to AstraZeneca India for really spearheading this collaboration with SGS Medical College. My session is the last one, and I was really going to ask Ashish, why have you kept my session as the last one? But I'm sure I will try to make it as interesting as possible. If you are fine, I will try to share from my side.
Sure, sir.
Can you see it? Yes.
It's visible. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And in the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to share with you a journey which I never thought would happen 20 to 22 years back when I embarked on this very different journey in medicine and then in the industry. And on this first slide, I have pictures of 4 cities who have immensely contributed to every aspect of my journey. The lovely city of Mumbai, where I was born, educated, studied at SGS Medical College, started my working in the industry, and a city which provided everything to me in very early phases of my life. Second is the city of London, where I live currently, but also a city where I took my first postgraduate degree outside India. And this city exposed me to a very different world of pharmaceutical medicine, be it in terms of thought and also in terms of experience. The third is the fantastic city of Singapore, the Red Dot, a city where I lived for more than 7 years, and a city which gave me, in reality, my first ever out of India work experience and has immensely contributed to every aspect of it. And the fourth is again a lovely city of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, a city which gave me the exposure of becoming the medical director for the first time outside India. Again, from every part of this world, I learned, and this is what I'm going to share with you in the next 20 minutes. I would fail in my duty if I do not share with you the fifth picture of my alumni, SGS Medical College and KM Hospital, which will very closely, very soon, it will celebrate 100 years of its magnificent existence in the city of Mumbai and India. Next, please. And 20 years back, when I decided to join the pharmaceutical industry, medical affairs was very different. It was predominantly a head office driven function, often considered as a support function, respected, but not considered as a part of overall business. But over the last few decades, we have now seen significant developments in the field of evidence generation, in the field of access to treatments, in the field of how you engage with stakeholders and physicians. And while we do that, how do you improve patient experience? And all of this has significantly contributed in the step up of medical leadership internally within the organization and externally within the community. So what we were doing 20 years back is significantly different from what we are doing today. And it will also be different from what we will do in the next 20 years. And that is why the expectations of medical leaders has changed. Today, when we look at medical leaders, we look at our ability of learning agility. How do we learn different things at different times? How do we understand business and contribute to leadership in business? Do we have a strategic vision to look at our function, patients, healthcare systems, governments, national policies, and how do we work with it? There are certain soft skills which are also very important. And I would like you to focus on these soft skills because as part of our curricula, we do not have much exposure to soft skills. I never even knew that a concept such as emotional intelligence existed till I joined the industry and I was exposed to it. I only thought that intelligence is IQ is important, but now we realize that EQ is far more important than IQ. How are your communication skills and how do you adapt your communication skills to different audiences? There are two important aspects that we always look at in leaders. At the end of it, we are the custodians of ethics and governance in the industry, and hence a deep understanding of compliance. And as science is evolving and as technology has become an integrated part of science, our ability to connect science and technology becomes very important. More than 20 years back, when I decided to go to medicine and not to engineering, I thought, oh my God, I have put physics behind. I don't have to worry about that. Today, I work more with technology, artificial intelligence, healthcare interventions, digital platforms more than anything else. And hence, both these fields are actually getting integrated. I will now share with you my journey in brief and what have been the learnings for me at regular parts of this journey. My journey started many years back in India as a medical advisor, like most of you would eventually join. It was a great organization, Pfizer. Used to be one of the best organizations in the industry at that point. And the first 3 years or 4 years was basically doing what we call typically in Indian context as medico-marketing initiatives, advisory boards, scientific exchange meetings, launching products. But we were not launching products. Maybe in 3 years, I launched only one product. Today, we are launching 3 indications, 3 brands sometimes in 1 year itself. Just shows the pace of how the industry has changed. But over those 3 years, and on every slide of mine, you will have the role that I did, the organization and the country, and also some of the brands that I was able to work on. For example, anticoagulants was very different. I had never worked on anticoagulants in my residency. Oncology was suddenly thrust upon me. We don't focus on oncology in our academic field. In 3 years of our MDs, even if it is internal medicine, pharmacology, public health, oncology is not always the focus. And eventually, many of us will work in oncology, in the field, rheumatology. These are areas where we don't give that much of importance. And that is my message to you. Focus on areas such as oncology, rheumatology, which are very, very relevant from an industry perspective. 3 years from my role in medical affairs, I suddenly got an opportunity to go and start working and manage phase 2 and phase 3 global drug development studies. This was, of course, an era where the studies in India were very high number and also in quality. And I learned a lot on how do you organize, how do you manage phase 2 and phase 3 clinical trials in India. That also gave me a significant external exposure because we were working with institutions in setting up clinical trial programs in different parts of the world, of the country. In 2007 end, my boss came to me and said that there's an opportunity for you to go and work in another country. I was very happy. Obviously, 5-6 years into the industry, we all want to go out. And like most Indian physicians, like most Indian medical students or professionals, I said, oh, is the position in US or UK? Because you obviously want to go there. And he said, no, it is in South Korea. I said, what? South Korea? Do you want me to go to South Korea? He said, yes. And I went and worked in South Korea for 1 full year, working in Pfizer, but setting up their clinical trial departments. Today, South Korea is far bigger than India in terms of number of trials and also number of phase 1 units. It helped me to work and understand how the academia and the industry can collaborate and create a phenomena called as South Korea. And my message to you is, if you get a chance to work in South Korea anytime, please do that. It's a challenge because of language, but it's a great opportunity. After coming back, I got an opportunity to work in a very different field. So my first 6-7 years were traditional medical affairs, phase 2 trials, medical affairs, oncology. And suddenly I got a chance to work in a very innovative program called as PRAYAS, developed by Sanofi in India. And this was on how we can build capabilities in rural and semi-urban India. But it also helped me to build one of India's first MSL teams. Pfizer and Novartis were the two organizations who have built it before. And together, in 3 years, we built up PRAYAS for improving healthcare in rural and semi-urban India. Very different from the skills that I had obtained in the past 6 to 7 years. But again, agility and ability to learn became very important. These 3 years played such an important role in my life that they gave us our first Harvard Business School publication and PRAYAS. And if you can just go on Google and type PRAYAS and Harvard Business School, you will get our case study, which is a part of Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, as well as Harvard Business School. As I was finishing about 10 or 11 years in India, and this is important because I'm going to come back to it as a reference, I then got an opportunity to move abroad and to move beyond the shores of India and to work as a regional therapy area lead for AstraZeneca for the diabetes portfolio. And here you would look at the number of countries. They were all India, Korea, Taiwan, and Southeast Asian countries. And the Korea experience that I had for 1 year really helped me to do this role because Korea is a big market for Asia. I knew, of course, India. I didn't know other countries, but again, ability to learn differently becomes useful. But again, that Korea experience played a very important role. Here, I was leading the diabetic strategy of an organization. It was new to AstraZeneca. It was new to me as well. But again, ability to learn and put things in context always helps. 3 years from that, my manager, my boss, called me up and she said, I have an opportunity for you to become a medical director for Malaysia and Singapore. Medical director is general, you manage the entire portfolio. Some of my friends said, you have gone to regional role, now you are going back to the country. Some people also came and said, Viraj, it's okay, sometimes, you could not manage the regional role. No, it was nothing like that. It was a significant step up for me because as a part of your journey, you need to manage a team and become a leader in a country which is not your native country. I had managed India in the past, but I had no experience of managing other countries. And the Malaysia-Singapore medical director role, in which you are a part of the senior leadership team, gave me that strong confidence that you could work in another country in a leadership role, not only in traditional medical affairs roles. We set up diagnostics, we re-entered oncology into Malaysia and Singapore. We restarted clinical trials in these geographies. We brought patients into the forefront of what we were doing in terms of education, and we made access an important aspect of our entire journey. My next role within AstraZeneca was the International Medical Director for Emerging Markets for Oncology. You will now see a slight shift. I have now managed a geography. Now I needed to manage a therapy area at a broader geography. So you need to change gears. Cannot be in one journey only. There are multiple changes that you have to do. And here again, it brought me closer to oncology. Oncology is, of course, an area where AstraZeneca has been leaders in discovery and development of new medicines. And in these 3 years, we actually developed the strategy for BRCA, what you know as the BRCA gene, and the role of PARP inhibitors in ovarian and breast cancer. How do you identify patients? We brought medicines which made even ovarian cancer nearly curable. And that is the joy when you see new medicines being brought and you see the impact on patients, that gives you tremendous joy. So these are areas where I was now moving from a functional role to a little bit of a leadership role. And then suddenly, amidst the pandemic, with the world closed for pandemic, I was called and I was told, we need you to take up a different responsibility as the area medical director for Middle East and Africa, which is Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Turkey, whole of African continent, Lebanon, Morocco, all the countries. And I said, yes, I will take up. And also got a chance to work on AstraZeneca's COVID vaccine during this journey. But as we were building this, we realized that within the Middle East and Africa, again, I'm now managing a group of medical directors. We had more than 300 in my team, whom you are managing indirectly. Plus, you are a part of the area leadership team, and you drive the entire geographical area strategy for your organization. Early this year, I got a chance. I would not say chance, an opportunity, but again, well thought of opportunity to move into a very different function, a business function. So today what I do is I lead the business for oncology, for lung and gastrointestinal oncology for emerging markets. Again, you might say, well, you're a medically qualified person, you should be in medical affairs. Why are you moving into business? And that's the demand of the industry now. You work in your own function where you are more comfortable with, but at a particular time, if you want to be a business leader, there are opportunities for you to take. It requires a significant step up. It requires that you need to rise high. You need to learn more things, but business leader roles will become more and more important, at least in the areas of oncology and rare diseases where the industry is moving. So what have I been learning in the last 2 decades? My foundation years helped me in understanding the basics of medical function, but also allowed me to remain active externally and connect to academics. And even then, I was very closely associated with many of our departments, including the department at KM Hospital, where we work together with future generation of leaders. As I moved beyond India, what I learned was geographical learning, understanding regulations in other countries, practices, clinical environment, access. But a very important aspect of what I learned is cultural alignment. How you work in India is different from how you will work in Asia, how you will work in Middle East, and how you will work in Europe. And our ability to keep on changing our cultural alignments becomes a very critical success factor in our journey. In the leadership roles that I have been doing, enterprise leadership is thinking broadly and not getting restricted to your own function becomes very important. And in this journey, what I've always strived is to bring science into the boardroom, because you are an expert of science into the boardroom, but also bringing boardroom into medical and understanding that our understanding of business of healthcare is extremely important. Don't get me wrong here. Business of healthcare is not sales. That's an entire responsibility of sales function. You may go there or you may not go there. Business of healthcare, meaning the image of the organization. Are you able to diagnose patients early? Are you helping the diagnostics function? Are you helping the access systems? Are you working with insurance providers to bring more and more patients into the access net? This is business of healthcare. And this is what we expect from leaders of tomorrow. I will switch gears a little bit. I know I have about 5 or 7 minutes. I will try to wrap up in the right time. But basically in your journey, you will have 2 types of roles: country roles and regional or global roles. And I always say the right role should come at the right time. None of these is right. There are 5 aspects which I will discuss both country and regional roles on. How are you able to influence others? What is the breadth of your role? What is the depth of your role? How good are you in adapting to different roles? And how well can you connect to people? The regional and global roles are typically subject matter expert roles. These are roles where people do not necessarily report into you, but you are accountable for what they do. And I've been always blessed for working with some of the best teams and best brains, far more intelligent than me, but I've been able to work with them. And that helped me to learn new and new things. Your influencing skills become more important because you need to get things done from people and they don't report to you. Your breadth is geography. Your depth is your therapy area. So you're doing both the things, but it is different. When you now get into country medical roles, which all of you will start with, and some of you will excel very well in country medical director roles, 70% of the industry, country medical director is the ultimate role that they do. And there are people who are doing it for 20 to 30 years. And you can add significant value at every stage. These are roles where your influencing skills are mainly to cross-functional teams, to commercial, to regulatory, to HR. Your breadth is the therapy area. Now, here's the difference. In the global or regional role, your breadth is the geography and your depth is the therapy area. Here, the breadth is therapy area. You need to manage multiple therapy areas, but your depth is your geography, your country. And your people connect becomes important because people are reporting to you. You are managing their aspirations and you are accountable for what they will do later on in life. And a very important thing for me was many of these individuals, team members whom you see on this slide, who were a part of my team, eventually went on to become medical directors and do far more complex roles than anybody. One aspect that we must always remember, whenever we are working in the industry, you play a very critical role in shaping the environment. And I would put it under three broad headings. You are employed and you will be employed by the industry for your clinical understanding and expertise. Let me make that point very clear. And that is why I want you to spend more and more time with clinical departments during your 3 years as well. This plays a very important role. Two areas where I could work very closely is when we develop the entire concept of Asian diabetes and why certain group of medicines are known to have more beneficial effects in diabetes. And this was a concept that we actually developed 6 or 7 years back when I was managing Singapore, Malaysia, and Southeast Asia. The second aspect was, how do you treat first-line ovarian cancer? And what are the treatment patterns that need to be implemented to do that? So these are just two examples to show you that you need to become experts in clinical medicine. Very early in my career, when I had to get into oncology, I had no experience. But then I listened, I worked with Tata Memorial Center. I worked with some of the top experts there and learned oncology as if I'm a student in the field of oncology. Understanding clinical sciences is extremely crucial for your success. While we do that is the field of pharmaceutical medicine. This is a specialty. I think Dr. Shoily spoke last week on this specialty. And what is your contribution to the field of pharmaceutical medicine? And again, just two examples here, an article that I wrote about how will medical affairs shape up post-COVID-19, that was also published. And then our group worked together on a very, very interesting paper, which again, I would say you must read, is the 7+ habits of highly effective medical directors. This is based on Stephen Covey's excellent book on 7 habits of highly effective leaders or highly effective managers. And finally, you need to be active in societies. Thanks to the opportunities provided to me very early in my career, I could work in the Indian Society for Clinical Research in our joint journey of expanding the field of clinical research in India. And the same skills and capabilities I continued, and I still continue to do now in my active work as the co-convener of the Global Forum of the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Medicine. Again, please make yourself active in these societies and contribute back to academics, contribute back to the industry and to the next generation of leaders. Final 1 or 2 slides here now. Few learnings for me, which I wanted to share with you. Always learn new skills and functions. I moved from medical to clinical, moved from clinical to rural healthcare, moved from rural healthcare to regional therapy area roles, then moved into medical director roles, then moved into area medical director roles, and then moving into business roles. So again, learn new skills and functions and keep on enjoying this journey. Always be in the company of your mentors. And I would really like to call out few individuals who have played, these are not individuals, they are institutions by themselves, who have played a significant role in my own development. I was blessed by God to do my post-graduation residency again under one of the greatest doyens of pharmacology in India, Dr. Shardini Danukar. Got a chance to work with Dr. Nirmala Rege when she was managing me as a postgraduate student. Later on, Dr. Nilima Shirsagar became the dean. Again, madam, great doyen of clinical pharmacology in our country. In the industry, when I joined, Dr. Arun Bhatt, who continues to be my mentor and continues to guide me. Sir, many years back, asked me once we were going for a clinical research program, and I was speaking. He said, Virat, I don't see you writing much. I got the message. And that again inculcated a lot of skills. Dr. Amir Sheikh, my first boss, who took me into the industry when I had zero experience. I had no experience. I only had an MD degree with me, but invested in me and invested a lot in my development. So always be in the company of good mentors. Focus on what you want to be remembered for. This is the steering committee which developed Asian diabetes concept. And that will always be something that you would be remembered for. Always collaborate. We often try to compete with each other. We feel that the person sitting next to you is going to be your competitor. Could be, but you yourself are your own competitor. And always collaborate, and together we can do more. And finally, family comes first. Whatever we do here, this is all temporary. But our family, our near and dear ones who sacrifice everything for us, are more important for us than anything else. Finally, I would not have been here. And these are some of my teams over the last few years. On the left side are two teams, from India. My first team on the left corner, I was a member of that team. Incidentally, most of these great friends and team members eventually became medical directors. So it was a great thing. You can see my face, very young there. But below is my first team in Sanofi, and together we really set up Prayas, and we set up a unique model for healthcare. And on the right side are my teams from Korea and also from Malaysia and Singapore. And now, of course, you would see, as I got into the area medical director roles, experience from Middle East and my team from Africa below. The message that I want to give you is your ability and agility to work with different cultures and geographies will define you as a professional. Do not remain focused on a particular geography as well. But at the same time, spend sufficient time in India, at least a decade. I have been asked questions by people, oh, I am 1 year into the industry, I want to leave India. No. Our country provides us with tremendous opportunities for us for learning. What you will learn in India, you will not learn anywhere else. Get my words. And invest and give back to the country what they have given to you. And that is why whenever I got opportunities to work with the team in India, I really did that. We set up the Center of Excellence, of which Ashish and Bharat have been a part of. Everything from emerging markets was actually done through India, because the real potential of our country still remains totally untapped. I would end my presentation by a quote from the Bhagavad Gita, said 5,000 years ago, that we are kept away from our goal, not by obstacles, but by a clear path to a lesser goal. And the Supreme Leader, the Supreme Master, said this 5,000 years ago. It is an important thing that we need to dwell deep into it and understand what it means. There will be lesser goals, there will be easier paths, but is that really your potential, or you want to do something else? I will finally end my talk with 3 pictures. The picture on the left is, as a student, I was visiting London. I said, pharmaceutical medicine was not even known as a specialty. I said, let me explore. And I bumped into the Royal College. And I said, I have come from India. I want to do this program. Went to Surrey, did the program. And then, of course, when I got the membership about 3 years back, and this year was awarded the fellowship. at the faculty. The first and third pictures are exactly at the same page, same place, about 15 years apart. Friends, I want to thank you. I want to wish you all the best in your careers. I want to tell you that industry is a great option. So is academics. So is getting into regulatory agencies. Explore different paths. But while you are doing that, enjoy every aspect of the journey. Give back to the country, give back to the society what you have learned. And at the end of it, make a mark for yourself, your family, and our country.
Recording stopped.
On that note, I would thank you and wish you all the best in this program.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Viraj, first of all, for being here
Recording
with us
in
and sharing your
progress.
journey, which I'm sure deserves nothing less than huge respect from us here in AstraZeneca and the audience who are listening us. Thank you so much for that. And you asked at the start that why your session is at the end. Let me say you that we wanted to close the curtains for PharmaSteer 2024 with a bang, and I knew that your session has potential to do that. Thanks a lot for that, Dr. Viraj. We do have received a couple of. I know we are already at full, but
no, we can continue. I can continue for 5-7 minutes if you are fine. I don't know how this is.
I do have one question for you, Dr. Viraj. So the question is, how can a physician transition from clinical practice to a role in pharmaceutical industry, and what are the initial steps to take?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Again, as I said, what you need to bring is your clinical expertise and experience. And I have had several examples of some of my own team members who were in clinical practice. They liked joining. So they joined the industry basically as an MSL or field medical. They, of course, tried to go through some formal programs like what we have here with PharmaSteer, etc. And get some exposure, understand how the field works, and then start work as an MSL. And incidentally, what I realized is that 2 or 3 of my team members, after 8 or 10 years of working in the industry, went back to clinical practice. And when they went back to clinical practice, they were better clinicians because they employed the structured way of looking at a patient, which helps you back into clinical practice. So to answer your question, first and foremost, try to find out a good course or a good program which gives you basics, and then start working. The moment you start working, there will be many opportunities.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Viraj. My last question to you would be, how can mentorship and networking contribute to career growth and advancement for pharmaceutical physicians?
Thanks. And these are 2 completely different concepts. And we have to understand that mentorship is not coaching. Mentorship is understanding what are Viraj's faults, what are his gaps, and what he should be doing. At the same time, what are his strengths? And mentorship plays a very important role in what you do. Even today, every year, I spend about 1 to 1.5 hours with my mentors, and they actually guide me on what should be my next step. So this would be a very important thing. You should, of course, be able to identify who the right mentor for you is. Networking, unfortunately, we have often used this as tactical. I want a job, I network. I want a promotion, I do network. No. Networking, again, is a part of keeping your ears open, learning how the world is moving, learning what people are doing, and understanding and explaining to them what you bring to the table. Whether a role exists today or it exists after 3 years is a different discussion. Don't run after the roles, run after the experience. The role will run after you. That is all what I can share with you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Viraj. With that, let me thank you for being here with us. And since we would be closing the curtain soon in another 5 minutes, I would urge if you could stay back for another few minutes. I know you must be having parallel priorities, but it would really be great if you could stay back for a few minutes. We would invite Dr. Padmaja post the internship announcements for the audience. All right. With that, let us now move forward to the awaited part of day 4 of PharmaSteer 2024. And let me now take you all through the AstraZeneca Medical Affairs Internship Program. Before that, let me reiterate the internship at AstraZeneca Medical Affairs are designed to provide valuable insights and skills that would be instrumental in shaping your future careers. With that, let us try and understand about this industry-leading internship program with AstraZeneca Pharma India Limited. So let me just read through the rules that are associated with the internship program which we have with respect to PharmaSteer 2024. And the first one is, we will be sharing the online assessments with you via email by 20th of December 2024. Students who are eligible and are interested in the internship program must complete the assessment on or before 25th of December 2024. Students must ensure they meet their university requirements for eligibility to participate in the internship program. We will be selecting top 10 scorers based on the assessment, and we would select them for the next round, which is the interview round. Out of top 10, we would be selecting 5 to 6 students from across the group for the internship program within medical affairs function in AstraZeneca Pharma India Limited. With that, let me now reiterate the rules once again for the benefit of all. So we will be sharing the online assessments with all via email on 20th of December 2024. Students who are eligible and are interested in this internship program will have to complete the assessment on or before 25th of December. Students must ensure they meet the eligibility requirements to participate into the internship program. We will select top 10 scorers for the interview round. Out of top 10, we would be selecting 5 to 6 students for the internship program within AstraZeneca Medical Affairs function. With that, let me now thank all our speakers of the day and the students for being with us for all the 4 days. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for making PharmaSteer 2024 a resounding success. Thanks a lot for your support. With that, let me now invite Dr. Padmaja Marathe, Professor, Additional Department of Pharmacology and Therapeutics, Sage GS Medical College and KEM Hospital, Mumbai, for a vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Ashish. Good evening to all those distinguished guests present in the podium and dear students. As we conclude PharmaSteer 2024 workshop, it's indeed my privilege to present the vote of thanks on behalf of the Department of Pharmacology and Therapeutics, Sage GS Medical College and KEM Hospital. First and foremost, it is indeed a pleasure to thank Dr. Viraj Rajadhyaksha, Doyen from AstraZeneca, whose talk you all have just heard. As Dr. Viraj mentioned, he is an alumnus of our department who has been the mastermind for initiating this orientation program in the year 2020. Viraj continues to provide his unwavering support to this workshop every year for the last 5 years and also gives an inspiring talk like today every year. Thank you so much, Viraj. In this workshop, some of the best speakers from AstraZeneca India as well as global team have provided insights into multidimensional and evolving role of medical affairs function and role of pharmaceutical physician. You would have learned that medical affairs function is mainly focuses on science and communicating science, and its emphasis is on translating innovations and technology into practice with ethics and integrity, keeping patient safety as the central consideration. I'm sure all of you would have found the academic talks delivered by the eminent speakers on topics like today's topic, antibiotic stewardship, role of AI in point of care healthcare delivery, using e-tools for publication, also relevant and interesting. In addition, tips were given to all postgraduate students on how to learn effectively, what skill set one should have for a professional career, how to present your scientific data as a story, and I'm sure these tips you must have found them very useful. We deeply express the gratitude to all these distinguished speakers from academic institutes as well as AstraZeneca who have spared their valuable time to share their thoughts with us. We are grateful to Dr. Hardik Vasnawala, International Medical Director, Heart Failure and Metabolism, and India Medical Director, for planning the scientific program and leading his able team to coordinate this workshop so well. A big thank you to Dr. Bharat HS, Trial, Publication and Medical Excellence Lead, AstraZeneca India,
for selecting some of the most relevant topics for the workshop. We are thankful to Mr. Ashish Kumar Dubey, Manager Medical Excellence, AstraZeneca India, who has painstakingly crafted this program in discussion with the core team from our department, Dr. Sandhya Kamath, Professor and Head, Dr. Rakhi Tripathi, Associate Professor, and myself. Thank you, Mr. Ashish, for doing such a great job of emceeing. Your style and energy were just the perfect for this program. This program would not have been materialized without the support of our Dean, Dr. Sangeeta Rawat Madam, and the cooperation extended by all our departmental staff members. Thank you, Mr. Rajesh Sharma, Chairman, and Mr. Nirav Shukla of Mice Ideas Private Limited, the event management company, for efficiently managing the virtual Zoom meetings. And finally, a very big thank you to all you dear students for your keen interest and enthusiasm. I'm sure you must have enjoyed this enriching academic feast over the last 4 weeks. As Dr. Viraj mentioned in his introductory speech, the association that we developed through this workshop should go beyond the workshop, and this networking should benefit all of us in future. Like every year, we look forward to your feedback and critical suggestions so that we can improvise in our future workshops. Now, before I take your leave, I take this opportunity to wish all of you a very happy, healthy, and prosperous New Year 2025. Thank you once again, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Thank you. Bye.